And with this official welcome to our first session of this FAC semester. Today we're going to talk about embodied learning or what that actually means. It's an important session as we have it in the first weeks. This lays a good foundation to actually being able to take the best or get the best from this course. So I invite you to really be present today with that. Make sure you move throughout. You're always welcome to move as long as you can concentrate on the session. We are really happy if you turn on your video so we can actually see you as well. And yeah, if that's irritating for you, no worries. You can click on your little image with the 3 dots. There's the option to hide the self view. I can really recommend that to not be irritated by your video or your image the whole time. This really helps to be more present. And yeah, make sure throughout the session you have good connection, no distraction. And with that, Christina, I'm handing over to you. Thank you for leading the session today.
Thank you, Alina. Welcome, everyone. First actual content session. How are you feeling right now? Show me some sort of gesture that represents that. Keep it going. I'm actually going to click through, have a sense of all of you. Some hands going, some thumbs are up, some... Yeah, okay, amazing. Thank you. I love that kind of feedback that I can actually see what is going on for you. Let's start by actually becoming a bit more aware of our bodies here. We're in this digital realm, but let's begin there by a quick check-in. So wherever you are, however you're sitting, standing, feel your feet. Maybe they're touching the floor. And then feel your bum on whatever surface you're sitting. Is it soft or hard, squidgy? Allow your weight to really drop in there. Keep your eyes open, but maybe direct your gaze away from the screen for a moment, lower it, or come a bit inward to sense how you are in this very moment in your body. How's your breath? Can you relax anything that you don't need, any tension you don't need right now? Okay. How's your jaw, your shoulders? How could you be a bit more comfortable in your own skin in this very moment? Maybe there's a little adjustment you want to make, a little movement, a little wiggle, a different kind of breathing. Choose how you want to be right now. And if it means you want to jump up for a few seconds and have a good shake, do so. Whatever makes you be able to learn. And we're going to dive right into that. What does it mean to be a learner? And I want to begin by reading a little poem. Stole that from you, Mark, from last year. It is by Portia Nelson. So choose your way of listening to that and taking it in. Maybe you want to close your eyes, maybe you want to move a little bit and see how it lands for you. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. I walk down another street. So this is by Portia Nelson. Maybe somebody can put that in the chat. I think it's even called There's a Hole in the Sidewalk, the Romance of Self-Discovery, if you want to look it up later. I'm curious to hear just for a moment how you are. Share with me in the chat. How is it having started this course? There were already a couple of tasks. Have you found your peer groups? How are you with all of this? Briefly in the chat. I hope the organizational bits and bobs might have felt like a lot at the start, arriving with the opening session last week. Have you familiarized yourself with the platform? Yeah, feeling excited, confident, looking forward. Nice. Ready to explore. Wonderful. Catching up. Yeah. There's going to be quite a bit of content here and there. You'll have to figure out when fits in with your days. Loving Mark's book. Yeah. I'll mention that today in the context of learning. Still trying to get into everything. Yeah. And notice how you are with these things. If you're in this, oh, I still got to catch up. I haven't managed to get into the platform. I haven't read this. I haven't started the book. If that creates a lot of stress in you, maybe not a place to go that will allow you to actually absorb everything we'll have to offer over the next weeks for you. And you'll get the hang of it. Please give Mark some Amazon reviews, he's saying. If you are reading or have finished already the book, are you a good student? You finished the book already? We're going to tap into a bit more of what kind of learner you are. Thank you. So my first question to you is, why does it even matter to speak about learning? Why is it important to maybe start an entire course with talking about exploring your relationship with learning? Let me know that in the chat. Thanks, Rowan, for posting the poem. Yeah. It's important to keep growing. Yeah. Why? Why else? Being open to learning and knowing potential barriers. Yeah. Learning is my life motor. So learning in itself, we can agree on, might be a good thing. Yeah. Anyone here opposed to learning? Give me a wave. Anyone doesn't like learning? Then you might be in the wrong place. Yeah, to become of your patterns, all of that. So what might be in your way of learning? What kind of learner are you? And what levels of learning might there be? What waits for you in this particular course? How are we doing this? Sharing in the wisdom we have to share with you, the content with you, and how you can best receive what we're giving. Yeah. So I prepared a little presentation. I want to start off by talking a little bit about the different levels of learning. Any guess what they might be? Because there are like different degrees of depth of learning that we could allow ourselves to enter into. What kind of different learnings might there be? I'm going to open this wonderful presentation that I created. Cognitive versus experiential, intellectual. Yeah, you could call it that way. Embodied. Yeah, what is embodied learning? That's a very good question, because we'll be doing mostly embodied learning. A little bit of cognitive with all senses. Yeah. So I hope you can all see this. Right. Embodiment and about learning. So basically, we've summed it up. Mark probably came up with a concise little list of 5 levels of learning. There's the level 1, which is basically just receiving a mental infection of some sort. What does that mean? It's the kind of learning, very superficial degree of learning, that we feel we receive when we're scrolling through social media. And there's one clever quote or a clever little post that tells us a very quick spark of information that we resonate with. What was a catchphrase that keeps coming back? What was it? The whatever fires together wires together is one of the typical ones we keep referring back to. So it's anything that gives you a sort of aha moment, some degree of like, yeah, I agree with that, a resonance potentially in yourself, where you feel like somebody has delivered a certain degree of information, but actually there might not have been a real learning. Like, what do you know more about a subject matter simply based on that? That is the first one. I'm going to get out of this sharing for a moment and bring it back up later. So that degree of learning, has anybody experienced that when you're like spending time somewhere and you maybe hear these phrases repeated and it's just, you have that immediate sense of like, oh, yeah, that resonates. I like that. And maybe it sparks your desire to then know more about it, to learn more about it. So that would be the most superficial level we can address. It grasps our attention. It's the attention catcher, which can be really important and helpful, because if we're not on board and there's no curiosity that drives us, then maybe we're not likely to absorb as much of a book, for instance. If the book has a really catchy title and it conveys something that might be societal or culturally like common knowledge that we resonate with, that we agree with, like the body never lies, thanks Mark, that sort of catchphrase, and then we want to dive deeper into it, that's a great starting point. But it's not yet really enough. It's more like what memes do. It sounds good, but it's superficial. It's just a reproduction of things everybody might say. You might hear at the moment I see a lot on social media, of coaches and life coaches repeating the same stuff. How many memes have you seen in one day that exactly post the same line? How many on average? 30? So that's where we go with that very superficial level. The next level is the one we're probably most familiar with. It is information. It is the cognitive side of things. It is knowledge. It happens when you're reading a book, you're absorbing whatever is given in terms of information there, the content, and then you walk away smarter. You've learned something. Your brain has, I don't know, maybe your brain mass has grown in some ways, you know, you're able to potentially explain something to somebody as well. It is the knowing. The first one was maybe, ooh, you're charmed by something, you're feeling inspired. The second is after reading a book, you might feel like you actually know more. But then again, why is knowing in itself not enough? Especially here, none of you would be here if it was only about knowing things. You could all read all the wonderful books out there to understand everything there possibly is about embodiment. You could read Mark's books. As you said, they're great. They give you all the necessary information you need. 2 books. You read those, you'll probably have all the content we'll ever share with you in terms of information in this course. It would be a lot cheaper for you. It might be even faster than doing 6 months of this. But what's the difference? We walked around only knowing about embodiment. We are still not able to do anything differently maybe in our lives. Good example would be in a romantic situation. If somebody has read all the possible books in the world about how to be the perfect lover, the perfect boyfriend, but has never ever been in a single relationship, how good you think somebody can get at that? Or a cook, having read all the possible cooking books, but never actually prepared a meal in their life. Or a pilot. If you were about to board a plane and the pilot told you, I've read 100 books on how to fly a plane. Don't worry, you're in safe hands. Would you trust that pilot if he had never flown an airplane before? There's something really crucial missing. And especially when it is about change and changing ourselves or helping others maybe change things in their lives. If we only know about things, we only get as far. So information is important, but also in this course, what we'll do probably a bit more of is working on the skills level. So the doing side of things. To engage in something new will broaden our capacity, our ability, our skill level. We are basically doing that by maybe practicing something new or immersing ourselves in a new environment. It is actually physically or with your entire being doing something that you haven't been doing before. It is getting into that car or airplane and driving that car and practicing how you're actually doing it. Riding a bicycle. It's probably one of the first things we really had to do to learn it, right? Who remembers that, riding a bicycle? It wasn't enough for somebody to explain it to us. We had to actually get on, overcome that fear, try it out, do it over and over and over again, maybe fall down a few times, or even simpler. What about walking? None of us would be able to walk if we didn't just do it and tried out new things. If we would have given up straight away, like fall over first time, I'm like, yeah, walking is not for me. That would really have limited us as adults nowadays. So that level of developing new skills is really important. And in some degree, this course hopes to give you a palette of new experiences, a palette many different ways of doing things that will hopefully break you out of the stuff you've normally been doing. There is a difference, and coming back to the embodied intelligence model, for instance, between a long and a short-term impact, though. Because even now, you can check in with yourself. How are you sitting in this very moment? How are you in terms of being a learner right now? And what if you were to do something different in your body right now? Maybe even with the intention to support your learning. What would you change? Or taking out the intention of being a better learner and just sit in a way that you've never sat before. Do it differently. I mean, when we come back to talking about habits, you know this, if you cross your arms, right? If you do it with me, and then uncross them, cross them the other way. In the beginning, it's like, oh, what the heck? How do I do this? And then you do it 100 times, and maybe you'll be a master of crossing your arms both ways. Still, maybe not a life skill that will get you very far, crossing your arms in both ways. But there are a million other things that we can learn in that way, developing new skills. There are some things where we might learn how to do a certain breathing technique, and it really shifts something in us, and we do this, and then we feel differently. But maybe the impact doesn't necessarily last, because we're only impacting our state in these moments. So there's a differentiation between something we consciously approach, do differently in a moment, feel differently, are differently in that moment, but it doesn't necessarily translate yet in changing how we move through the world. That's where the long-term embodiment comes back in. Do you all remember the, where is it gone? Let me bring it up. Favorite one, share with you. The cube, refer to the cube, embodied intelligence model. So if we're only staying in the front part of this cube, that's where a lot of the skills levels become in really, they're very, very handy. You will have the skill of regulating yourself in a given state, to not be upset, to be calmer, or to be more energized whenever you want to, in certain moments. It's a really, really cool thing to do, to have these skills, to impact yourself, be aware of them and all that. But they're all in that front side of the cube. Later on, it's like about the long term, bringing it to that long term. So that's when we're talking about patterns and traits, and learning more about that only happens through practice. And I'll come back to practice a bit later. But through practice, we can also impact how we are and how we do things, therefore, in our lives. And maybe that shifts us already into a deeper learning state, which is wisdom. Wisdom versus knowledge, or wisdom versus skills. So we were at like inspiration or infection. Then we had the level of cognitive absorption of knowledge, knowing something. Then we moved to doing things differently. And then we're coming to a level of being able to apply these skills in our daily lives, to actually integrate them, to actually make them our own. It's then not just me going, oh, now I've done this crossing my arms differently skill. It's a silly one to take as an example. But now I also know when I can do that in my daily life and show somebody I'm really not okay with what you just said, and cross them in both ways. What a versatile skill to have. No, that's a silly example, but there's a degree of having learned new skills like centering and all the skills we will be sharing with you, regulating your own state, for instance, that come in really handy in your day-to-day. If you're having a talk in front of a group of people, you're feeling really nervous, and you've learned the skill of regulating your own state, you might deal with that nervousness in a different way. It might have become so usable for you, like going to the gym and training that muscle, that you can then actually go out there, apply it, make it your own, and do something differently also in your own life. And then there is a level that we reach that stage of unconsciously doing something different, where it's seeped in so deeply into us, and we've learned it on the deepest possible level. So it is about becoming that thing, being that thing, being different. You are something new. You have changed over an extended period of time and arrived at that stage of that depth of learning. So to return back to maybe giving you the visual again. This would be the level of being. You are different. So on which levels are you learning in your day-to-day? And on which levels could you be learning in this course? We will definitely offer most on the level 3. And if you keep doing it on a sustained, regular basis, what we're giving you, hopefully you'll arrive at level 5 with the content of this course. Okay, so this is just a little bit. This particular session is slightly more on level 2 cognitive learning. There'll be a lot of information. So notice how that is, and maybe take 10 seconds to move your body in a way that can help you just even handle these 5 levels. So what would help you let them settle in and potentially also forget about it? Like, I can't remember them yet. I'm a bad student. You're not. Have a little shake. You can always attend Mark's session on this, which will land slightly differently, same content, but we'll go in deeper. Different teacher, different words, different style, different humor. Certain jokes might support your learning, and things will stick more. So that's the invitation as well for then sessions like today's. Revisit the recordings of other sessions. Yeah. So in some way, I think in our culture nowadays in particular, there's a heavy tendency to either just stay at the very superficial level or heavily prioritize the cognitive learning. And also, we're never giving enough time. And the deeper we go in our learning, the more time we actually need to integrate. Later on in the course, we'll talk about cycles and the part of natural cycles in life where we're resting, digesting, letting things settle, and really land is often is neglected a little bit. Let's put it that way. So also see for yourself, where and how can you make space for that? Where and how can you give yourself potentially a bit more patience or time, and maybe say, I don't need to get everything right now, because I've repeated this course several times, including while I was teaching it, and I keep learning. And this has been almost like 6 years, 7 years, I don't even know. Every round, there's another degree of things seeping in, settling, landing, where I digest. So making that part of your learning as well. Important to give that space and time. Like a breath. Okay. So next little remark is maybe on how we might convey the information or also bring new skills to you. There are 3 different ways that can be done. It is teaching, coaching, and facilitating. Anyone know the differences? And notice if you're jumping right now into, yeah, me, I know. We'll come back to that. What's the difference between teaching, coaching, and facilitating? Because a lot of what we do is a mix of all of these, potentially. You're learning, or a lot of you are learning to be a coach. It's very different to being a teacher. So teaching is on some level just pointing to something, telling somebody. It's telling. So if it was about a water bottle, teaching would be me telling you, this is a water bottle. Now you've all learned that this is a water bottle, right? Coaching, on the other hand, is about asking. Coaching would be me asking you, what is this? Do you have any idea what this is? How would you name this thing? And facilitation would be maybe guiding and bringing others to the place of realization of what this might be by interacting. Yeah, try out. Let's engage with this thing. Let's figure out what this might be. Have you seen something similar? And maybe exploring it a bit more through experience as well. So we will be using a mix of these, and maybe you are expecting to be taught all the time. That will not be the case. So if you're like, just tell me everything. No, we'll probably engage you a lot by asking you questions as well. And that is meant to support your learning. But what might be in the way of your learning? What might hinder you? What are the barriers you might be facing? That might basically mean what makes you teachable or coachable, or what does block you from that. If I now taught you about this water bottle, and I taught you about water and the contents of this, and what might block you from actually taking that information in? Or if I asked you, time to digest, past information on thoughts, distractions, ego, low confidence, stress. Yes, all of these. So let me return to this little fun thing that I've created. Where's the share button? We call these things, can you see this? The trolls of learning. And I've put some pictures here to make it very clear. Is that visible, Alina? Can you see that? Yeah, great. So trolls are basically all these wonderful, cute and disgusting little creatures. I've chosen specifically those that are cuter, that might be in our way. And sometimes it helps giving them some faces like that. Trolls are all these beliefs, limiting beliefs, thoughts we have about ourselves, about who we are and how we do things, or how we are not able to do certain things. And it's almost like a little voice or one of these creatures sitting on your shoulder going like, me, telling you something that will then not make you be able to absorb the information that's there. What are examples you have of what these trolls might be, if you were to give them names? What are names of trolls you can imagine having? Like if you imagine your little creature that really keeps you from learning, that tells you nonsense of what you're capable or not capable of, that just the lazy troll. Yeah, I'm too lazy to learn. If you hold that belief about yourself, yeah, self-doubt, absolutely. Low self-esteem, like I'm just not a learner, even that. Or I'm really slow at learning, or I don't know enough. I might have missed some information to even absorb the new information that's coming at me. Or maybe it's the opposite. It's like, I know everything already. Who here has that? So I gave an example of some of the most common ones I have encountered in my life, which is the knower, the know-it-all. I already know what she's talking about. I've learned about the trolls a long time ago. Notice if that's your thought right now. They could also be the perfectionist and the kind of striving to get it right. Like, I really need to get it right. Whenever she asks a question, I'm really trying my best to be a good student. It has to be perfect. Anyone have that? Give me a little wave. I'm definitely have struggled a lot with the perfectionist troll on my shoulder. It's not good enough yet. I got to get it right. Got to get it perfect. What about the pleaser? It's like, I want to do a good job. It's a slightly different one. It's also to do with getting it right, but it's to prove something to me, maybe. Yeah. Like, I want to be the good student because I want to, please the teacher. What about funny ones? I always got to be funny. I got to make a joke. If I don't know something, I also retreat to humor. If I do know something, I'm doing my best to make it funny. Yeah, anyone familiar with that? Or what about the being special? I want special attention. I'm a very special snowflake. Yeah. I have special needs in this particular environment. I need extra attention. Anyone have that? Or maybe that's blocking, like certain conditions you're setting to the framework. Or potentially the opposite of that. You want to kind of hide. Don't want to be seen. Oh, please, don't pick me. Don't ask me a question. I want to hide in the background. I just want to slip through the cracks. And then there's obviously the not enough, being too much, not knowing enough. It's never enough. Like, I'll never be a coach because I never know enough. I've never had all the 100,000s of hours of practice. So I'm possibly not in the place to offer anything in the long run or even learn. I should have done this and that training before coming onto this training. Yeah, anyone have that? Or I need to get it all. That's kind of like a grasping one. Like, if I didn't write down all the words that she had on her slides right now, then I'm not doing a good job at learning this. Like grasping all the information. Notice how that is in your body. Like, did I miss something? You'll not get it. You'll not get it all. Which one is yours? Which one is your troll? And maybe we can do that in an embodied way. So have a moment, reflect what your particular, we all have a few of these, I think. but what's the one that's possibly the strongest for you? And get a sense of how that troll would be in your whole body. Let's mimic it for a moment. So do you want to play with me? Ah, okay. So I see, for instance, Rowan is like, give me attention, give me attention. Yeah, what are other ones you notice for yourself? Is it the, oh, give me more, falling in and forwards, grasping, like, give me more information. I haven't had enough yet. Or which one would you have? And how would that express when you would do it in your body? Never enough. Do it for a moment, just to feel how that feels. Because even though we might not do it to the exaggerated extent that I'm asking you to do it now, what would be just 1% of whatever you just did? And when do you catch yourself doing exactly that? If it is about the grasping, it's never enough information, I need more, then maybe there's just a leaning forward a little bit in yourself, and maybe a slight tension and activation in your hands that you can perceive. You can catch yourself in your own body. Or you're freezing. What does that mean? Yeah, gotta be the good girl, good boy. There's another nice question I remember Mark asking last year. How did school fuck you up in that regard? What did you learn in school that now makes your learning harder than it needs to be? You're welcome to write that in the chat. We can collect a few more things. Yeah, to be a good girl. That's too much to write here. We're not going into therapy. It's just a small reflection, don't worry. To hide, to be a good girl. Don't say anything stupid. Yeah, you might be punished for saying things that are stupid. But it's okay to make mistakes. We can't possibly know anything already that we're trying to learn. And if we think we know it already, then probably we're missing out on a whole bunch of new things. Remember beginner's mind? Yeah, you all know beginner's mind? Also know if you're reacting to that now, you're like, yeah, beginner's mind, I know. Does that bring your troll out? You can catch yourself in every moment. Yeah, comparisons, grades, competition, if others are faster than me. But does it really help you when you're trying to keep up with people who have a completely different style of learning potentially than you? Yeah. So in the end, it's all about figuring out a way how you can make friends with your little trolls. Maybe one reason I chose the cuter ones. What would be ways you could make friends with your trolls? There could be a creative way of doing that. And then making them part of that learning journey, befriending them a little bit. So you know they're there. There's that voice. There's that little ugly green creature on my shoulder coming out again. How can you relate to it? Yeah, it's not a matter of like necessarily smacking them off your shoulder directly, because they'll come back. Maybe you can negotiate with them. Get them out under the bridge. Maybe there's something they need to leave you alone. Yeah, have a little dialogue with them. Yeah, not let them run the show is probably it. They can be there. There might still be a chatter, however much you work with them, but really don't pay too much attention to them. Like, yeah, I know what you're telling me, and I'm not believing it. How can you stay in the steering wheel and not let them take over? Have a little stretch, have a little breather. Talking about comparison and competition, it's definitely another one that will hinder your learning. If you start comparing what we're presenting here in terms of the content to everything you've done before, I know there are lots of coaches in this space, there are lots of therapists in this space, there are lots of yogis in this space. You all have learned so many things in your life already, but there is a pitfall with trying to hold on to all the concepts and models and things you've already learned and just find a way to, apply that to whatever you're learning here. If you're immediately jumping to these conclusions of like, oh yeah, that's like I learned in Ashtanga, or that's like how I learned it in that model, or that's like when I in Qigong back then about the elements, and potentially doing that, you'll miss out on the nuances and on the differences that the models we're presenting are giving you. So as best as you can, yeah, Mark's term for that is premature connectulation. So if you're connecting things prematurely, Later on, we might even encourage you to connect some different things. But if you do that straight away, when we even just mention, you're going to learn about the 4 elements, and you're like, ooh, the elements. I learned about the 4 elements, but it's been 5 elements actually where I learned it, and you're squeezing it into your pre-existing concepts. That will be a barrier to your learning. Another question then, what about stress? How supportive is stress of your learning, or pressure, or being uncomfortable, stretching yourself, pushing yourself? Not at all. Not at all conducive of learning, or good? Some of you say good, some of you say not at all. So also here, maybe just a brief reminder, I pulled this off the internet. I can let you know who it's by, but I found this lovely depiction of it. Making sure that you're staying in the learning zone, which is just outside of your comfort zone potentially, because you're doing new things. It will stretch you a little bit. If you're staying with things that you already know, that you're used to, that you keep doing the things you're doing already, you're just fitting everything into pre-existing concepts, you'll be bored in the long run. You'll start being complacent. That's not where you learn. Moving out a little bit past that, testing new waters, that will bring some growth. If you're doing too much, if you're pushing yourself too much, you'll only end up what's called here the panic zone, or like end up being too stressed, out of a space of learning, contracting, potentially going into fight-flight responses. And that could look like you're just overloading yourself, because we don't know where you're at in your life. You've chosen on what kind of intensity level you're doing this course. Some of you might just certify, some of you want to do the bonus level degree where you're doing more, but really match that with where your learning is still happening in a positive way, where you can absorb, remembering the digestion times. If you're like just bashing through all the videos and catching up on all the live calls and pushing yourself too much, maybe you're actually missing out equally on the level of learning that could be happening. Yeah, just to remember that as well. And there are a couple other traps I want to mention that could potentially block you from absorbing new things. One of our favorites is a fundamentalist approach to things. When there's one right way of doing things, but my other teacher told me, and that's the right way, and you're holding on to that for dear life. If you're doing that, again, yoga Nazis, hashtag yoga Nazis. It will not help you learn. Also, so that would be the approach of there's only one truth, and that truth has already been conveyed by this guru I had 10 years ago. Won't help you. Neither will if everything is subjective and there's no truth at all, and it's like my truth and your truth and that unicorn's truth over there as well. So if everything becomes relative, we're going into a realm of highly postmodern nonsense. The yoga wankers, as Mark calls them. So that will not help either, because there are things that work, and there is a truth, an objectively identifiable truth. There can be opinions that differ, there can be thoughts that differ. All that is very welcome. We don't need to agree on everything. But when we start going into that relativism, it also won't lead anywhere. And then the last one is a very modernist approach, where it's like, there are only objective facts. And if that's not backed by this particular research and proven by that, and if you go hardcore into that direction, especially in an embodiment training, there's a lot about the subjective experience that people have. Things that work for one person that don't work for another, how you perceiving things, what your awareness does. So there is a degree of subjective reality that comes in that is important to consider and to stay with. We're working a lot with that, checking in. How does that feel in your body? What do you do in your body? And that's not like there's one way or there's one scientific way that works. And if somebody perceives this or names it in this way, it's wrong. So neither of these will be conducive of your learning. And lastly, to arrive at the most transformative journey that you could possibly have, or the best learning, if you want to go to the level of actually becoming and being different, not just having the cognitive level or potentially here and there learning how to apply things we're teaching you here, but really, really potentially change. And this comes with a disclaimer as well. Sometimes doing this course means you're changing. Often doing this course means you're changing. I hope you've warned your husband, wife, family of this potential. Because if you will engage in doing new things repeatedly, learning these new skills, you will become different. And that comes with practice. The main thing we'll be doing is practicing. Coming back to giving you a visual for all the visual learners amongst you, covering that as well. Oh, traps, sculpture, there. Practice comes with 5 to 6 important conditions or requirements that make practice practice. And that means it is deliberate. So there is an actual intention that you're creating a frame for. I want to learn this thing, and I've chosen to engage with, I don't know, I want to develop more confidence, and that's why I'm going to this Muay Thai gym, and I'm kicking the shit out of punching bags all the time, and that will help me to develop this. So there's like a focus, there is an intention at play. The other thing is you're doing it consciously. It's not an absent-minded running to the gym while watching TV and lifting some weights type of thing, where your attention is somewhere else, drifting off, and your mind is busy with one thing, your body is doing another, and it's all just coming back to that idea of a body as a vehicle that you need to work out. But bringing it all together, body, mind, heart, all in one. Be there with your full presence, be there with your intention, be there with your body, and maybe even whatever arises emotionally. So doing it consciously, definitely not unconsciously, passed out on bench, not a good idea either. And it's non-consequential. So why is it not a good idea to practice new relationship skills with your partner sometimes? Like becoming a better communicator, like starting off really clunkily with that. Or why is it not a good idea to practice boxing in a match straight away? Or becoming more patient, practicing that while you're engaging with your children? It's because these things could have real life impact and potentially detrimental as well. If you are stepping into the ring before you've practiced how to box, then you'll probably be punched in the face. And that has a consequence for your own health. If you practice things in your real life, at work, with your family, partner, loved ones, that could end up a bit clunky. You might actually impact them and your life in ways that we don't recommend. So basically, don't just tell your partner, honey, tone it down a bit. I'm practicing how to be a better listener, but you need to slow down for me while they're trying to share something emotional that is just not working usually. So find a container in which you can practice something non-consequentially. The other bit of that is calibrated. Calibration means there is a possibility to tone it up and down. As I just mentioned, if you can't ask your partner, your sparring partner, to go slower or faster or less strong, then it means you can't calibrate. An argument with your partner is not the time to ask them to speak slower or quieter because you're practicing a new skill. So find a way to have the container where you can adjust the variables. Dedicated is another one, to have commitment to your practice. It's really, this is the one thing I'm doing. It's at a certain time, it's at a certain place. There's no doing it on the side kind of thing. And then community is really important. Community means there are other humans with you practicing something. So you have a possibility to receive feedback. You have a possibility to have not just verbal feedback, but also the immediate kind of feedback of how things are going. The example of a sparring partner is a really good one. you're practicing, you're boxing, whatever it is you will be practicing in the long run. You can talk to that sparring partner usually. You can say, let's go slow, let's go fast. Hey, how was this? Does this work? Does this not work? So this is the whole criteria we give you for practice. Practice is not application. Application comes after. Later on, you can apply your self-regulation skills to your workplace, to your family life, to your loved ones. But in the beginning, when they're still a bit clunky, then not. And that's why we'll spend a lot of time on practice before we unleash you on any clients as well. And we'll start with the part where you actually practice for yourself and not even with that goal in mind yet, but starting there. What are a couple more things we could leave you with? I have a question. What is your relationship with authority? Do you know? Like we can do an experiment with that. Everyone, get up. Now. And sit down again. Notice how you responded to that. Were you immediately like, oh, she wants me to get up. I'm up. Are you going into the pleasing role? Is that maybe the troll you're having? The pleaser? The getting it right? The good girl? Anyone jump there? Yeah, did somebody go, oh, fuck that. What? No. Even with that attitude? Fuck no. Are you a bit of a rebel? Yeah? Who here was a rebel? Who was like completely ignoring the instruction? Like, I don't care. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah, reluctantly compliant would be the other one. Who was like, oh, I don't really want to get up. Okay. But I guess she said it quite authoritatively, so maybe I'll do it. Maybe it's part of, doing this course. So be aware of that pattern as well. Whatever your relationship with authority is, it might play out at some point with us, with me, with Mark, or any of the other teachers, Flower, Ranko, or any other. It might even just be a projection you have on us. Maybe you're projecting the mama onto me and Mark is the daddy, and you're living out some stuff with regards to that. Can happen. So simply being aware, it might not serve your learning. So maybe Flower is the auntie, or I'm the auntie, I don't know. So, but be aware of that, what your relationship with authority is, hierarchy in general, with getting it right, all the trolls we talked about. And she will crush you. I brought a bit out of, I did bring out my martial side a bit more than the usual jokey one. So there is another big area that's important to consider. We are from all different kinds of parts of the world. And learning has a flavor that shifts depending on the culture we're in. There are things we do differently. There could even be the simplest example. I think as a German, I'm not necessarily the first to go, I want to speak, unmute myself, share my opinion widely. But if you're from the States, maybe that could be something you feel more inclined to do. If you're from Japan, I lived in Japan for a long time, maybe you will be completely quiet, and participation in interactive learning formats are not actually part of your culture so much. There's a very frontal teaching method still prevalent, for instance. But maybe you're really good at absorbing and condensely like processing information because you're so used to that, just given the culture, the society you grew up in. There might be things that feel inappropriate in one culture versus another, like maybe some jokes, some humor. I hope you signing up to this course makes my humor appear very mildly offensive in comparison to Mark, and you've signed up knowing that Mark is leading this course, so I think I won't have a problem with you. But even my humor might not land for some people. Germans generally actually are not humorous at all, so I don't know why you're all laughing. That made a lot of you laugh a lot. Great. Okay, so and the last bit to mention is not the last one. There can be obviously layers of trauma that come in that can block your learning. We'll address trauma later on a little bit in the course. becoming aware of that. That might lead to certain defense mechanisms, and learning can become really hard if there is a trauma history. We'll address this separately a little bit. And then also ethical considerations. So just to say, in this container, we are very ethical, but ethics is relational and is embodied. We'll talk more about ethics. I think it's next week. But there's no such thing as telling you that this is a safe place and letting you rest in that. So safety, hopefully, is something we can create together. But there will be jokes on Mark's end, probably some that might provoke one or two of you. Deliberately, that can also lead to learning. There's also a gentle invitation to push you a little bit, maybe to that edge, where you're out of your comfort zone and in your learning zone, hopefully. If it becomes too much, though, we also hope that you're grown-up individuals, mature enough to be with your boundaries and to not just blindly follow, your relationship with authority. That's why I asked, blindly follow whatever we say. Like, there's always that, finding that balance. We will not harass you. We will not insult you. We'll not make you do stuff that's unsafe, but just to mention that as well. Yeah, I think that's a lot of stuff on learning. Let's take another minute for movement, to take a moment to digest, and then maybe we have 2 or 3 minutes to ask a few questions, but maybe get up out of your chair, have a little wiggle, a little breather. And then find your way back to the screen. Are there any questions with regards to what it means to be a learner? Any crazy insights you've had that you want to share with everybody, and you want to best unmute yourself and shout it out because you're American and you want to be heard? No? You want to hide in a corner and not even share in the chat? Is that a cultural pattern? Is that a troll? Like, I don't know if I learned anything. Like, yeah, unless it's really brilliant, I better don't say anything. Unless the question isn't really, really, really good, I better not ask it. I might be stupid for asking this question. That's the trolls coming out. Notice that again. No question. My eyes is really stupid. If there's anything you haven't understood, you're curious about, the answers will be, it's all about practice, and it depends. So can you expand on what it means to be calibrated with regards to practice? Calibration means you can modulate, like the volume button. You can turn up and down the volume of intensity of your practice. You can ask your sparring partner to go slower or faster. That you cannot do in a real life situation. If you're having an argument with your wife or your spouse or partner or whatever, you can usually not ask them to just be like 10% less annoying, because then you're practicing, you're centering, and you're not quite there yet to really hold the intensity to that degree. So that's calibration, means you can modulate up and down the intensity. Yeah, let's do posture. Let's go into a postural embodiment that is really conducive of learning. What would that be for you? How are you a good learner in your body? What, maybe there's an openness that comes into the chest. Maybe there's like a little bit of a leaning back, relaxation to absorb things. Or maybe there's a leaning in, like a bit of a curiosity, like, ooh, I'm curious, what's on offer here? Yeah. It might be different things for each of you. So play with that. But notice what this does. If you cross your arms and you lean away and you maybe raise your chin a little bit. Is that a good learning pose? Maybe not. Maybe it's like more like, I don't know what she got to offer. She didn't teach me anything new. No, I already knew all of that. Yeah. So you can play with that a bit. Generally, being more opening your front body, relaxed, not defensive, blocking. or potentially leaning in, unless it's, you know, a pushing back, like, no, I want anything, don't want anything of what you're offering here. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we call it an end to this. I'm quite glad it felt still spacious despite all the information. I am getting better at digest moments. Important one that I learned. And maybe I'll hand it to Alina. So in her most structured way, while we're both German, I don't agree with that cultural distinction. She's way more organized than me. She can tell you about the practice that is waiting, or that we expect you to do.
Thank you, Christina. I have to admit, I'm only structured at work, so guys, don't come to my house. But yeah, jokes aside, yes, we have some personal practices we ask you to do throughout the course, and they are building up. Maybe you already checked it out on the portal. There's the section with core personal practices. So this is basically what we ask you to do each week. And this week we are starting off, I mean, you heard about the importance of practice. We try to support you in building an embodied habit throughout the course. So we're starting this week with body check-ins. That means we ask you to check in with yourself 5 times a day. You can set your alarm on your phone, or maybe, create a certain structure for yourself. Every time you drink a glass of water, you check in with yourself. However you want to do that, this is up to you. But 5 times is great. If you pause for a moment and just land back into your body. So sometimes we are out there, bringing back to the body, feeling in, creating awareness about maybe what you feel below your feet, or when you're sitting on the chair. Basically what Christina was leading us through in the very beginning of the session, maybe you remember, really landing into the body. So this is the purpose of the body check-ins. Really, really great tool. I tell you, all the students from the past courses, they're such fans of the body check-ins. So I'm sure you will fall in love with this as well. Additionally, we have on the practice journal, so the PDF that you can download on the portal, I'm sure you've seen it, there's a section with some reflection time for this evening. We call it the evening troll diary. And this is where we invite you to, take a moment and reflect on, what are your trolls? Because as soon as you can name them, you can tame them, right? So it's great to actually be aware, because then you can catch yourself. Oh, okay, there's my troll coming up, and I can slow down. Christina? What?
You just gave a level 1 learning, a very catchy one. As soon as you can name them, you can tame them.
Thank you. Right. So it's super handy. Take a moment, maybe this evening, maybe tomorrow, to really sit down. It can also be really nice to draw them out. So I used to do that in the past, and I think we had that in other courses as well, to give them a little visual. Maybe it's a pink one, maybe it's a green one, maybe it's quite a cute one or a really nasty one, and you can give them some speak bulbs. So really make them visual for yourself, to then know, okay, this is my troll. It tries to keep me safe. It's fine. I'm going to learn here anyways. So yeah. Mark, if you can name them, you can blame them and shame them. Yeah, maybe that as well. most important, you can tame them when you can name them. So this is the second part of the core personal practice. The third one is to have 5 or 6 days this week where you're spending a minimum of 10 minutes in nature. Of course, this really depends on your surrounding, but the closest to nature you can get is amazing. So when you have a park close by, amazing. When you're living by the sea, perfect. Go for a swim if you can, if it's warm enough. Really have a bit of conscious time in nature. So not bringing your phone, not having a podcast running or something like this, but really being in nature. Have a look around. What can you smell? Maybe you hear some birds already here in Germany. We have spring coming, so I'm eager to get in the garden today. And bringing this into your week, having this as a set part for your day, spending minimum of 10 minutes. That's awesome. We're really enhance your embodiment and feeling in the surrounding. So yeah, but Adam, I see you're usually listening to the Embodiment podcast. This is awesome, but maybe turn it off for 10 minutes to really be in the nature, be with your dog while you're walking the dog. Yeah, great. So these 3 practices are also listed on our portal. And yeah, with this, a little reminder before we're closing for today. So the peer groups, each one of you with the shortest hair that was sending us the email with the names and email addresses of your peer group, we got back to you. Please make sure that you're agreeing within your peer group on a time and day that you are going to meet. So this is fully up to you and your group. You guys are adults, so you can self-organize what time and day works best for you to meet on a weekly basis. And we trust that you can start with that from this week onwards, so that you have a realm where you can reflect in a non-consequential way with your peers. So I hope you will enjoy these peer group meetings to start this week. And the contracts have been shared via email. If you haven't got one, maybe the one with the shortest hair forgot to send us an email. So we're waiting for still some people to get back to us. Reach out to Kek at Embodiment Unlimited if you haven't gotten an email, so we can check what's happening there. And with that, we are done for today's session. You're very welcome to stay 15 minutes to get into breakout rooms with other peers from this session to reflect and digest on the learning. And otherwise, you're welcome to join tonight as well, of course, or we see us next week. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. I'm muting everyone so you can say goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.